what's the point? I think the reason a lot of people are just totally disinterested in this stuff is because they have no idea the benefits. They have no idea it can actually impact their lives. We have this idea around like psychoanalysis. First of all, some people don't even believe it's real, so that's a thing. And second, people think it's just sort of like a hobby, like that like more like either more academic people like to study this, but it has no literal application in life, or airy-fairy people like to study this because they're weird and they have no critical thinking skills. Either way, I think it's generally not yet fully understood why we do this. What's the point of it? 1, relationships. This is pretty much one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in everyone's life. People care about their relationships more than anything. And the quality and health of your relationships, it sounds cliche, but we all know they depend on the health of your own relationship with yourself, right? We all know this. So as you do shadow work, you will probably notice, especially over like months and years, that your relationships with people you're close to will change for the better, even if nothing at all changes about that other person. So a lot of people will say like, yeah, well, I'm into all this stuff, but no one else is, like, so it doesn't matter. I still can't connect with people. It doesn't matter that anyone you're around, it doesn't matter if they care about, self-improvement or self-development or anything like that. If you are doing shadow work, you will start to have different experiences of them. And some people who are into law of attraction will say like, well, it's you changed your vibration, so you can no longer match up with the vibration of the other person that's negative, so you will only get the best of people. That's one way to look at it. If you're not into law of attraction, you don't believe that stuff, then you can just say literally that you've grown. And so other people's negativity or anything, like any issue that's going on with them, even if they're not negative toward you, it just doesn't have the same impact anymore, because you're more rooted in your own safety and like sense of self. Your relationships just become smoother, at least, like less arguing, less discord, and they can even become like more exciting. Like you start to because you've accessed new parts of yourself, and so there's more of you available than there once was. That's the big thing. There's more of you available than there once was, so people can interact with more of you, and you can actually get more connection because of that. 2, as we said in the first point, your relationship with yourself will be better. It will be less strained. There will be less self-sabotage. That's the big thing. Less self-sabotage, because self-sabotage is directly connected to your subconscious. There would be no such thing as self-sabotage if there was no subconscious, right? Because it really doesn't make any logical sense. Why would you be sabotaging yourself? Why would you be against you? It's because there's parts of you that you don't understand and you're not in touch with. So that's why there can be the part of you that wants a great job and the part of you that keeps quitting jobs. There's 2 parts because you don't understand all of yourself yet. And that comes with practice. So a less strained and healthier relationship with yourself is a result of shadow work. 3, freedom from shoulds. So what you think you should be doing, what other people tell you you should be doing, that starts to move into the background, and you stop doing things for arbitrary reasons. So, for example, someone might feel as though they have to go to college and get their degree, even though they hate college and school and like never did well in it, and it's just not their thing, but they'll go because they feel they should. That is a huge detriment. And as you do shadow work, you start to shed the need to do things because you should. Because should basically means cultural conditioning says I have to, and I don't know any better way. As you do shadow work, you will start to know a better way because you'll know yourself. When you know more of yourself, you can just follow your own blueprint. You can just follow your own strategy because you know what you want. It's not like this hazy, like questionable, like I don't know what I want, like who am I? It just becomes like, this is what I want. That's what I'm gonna do. 4. This is like the reason. If this were the only reason that shadow work helped, it would still be worth it. You stop having to repeat toxic patterns. So a really common example is people who keep getting into relationships that don't work. And they usually don't work for the same reasons over and over and over again. So everybody has like that friend who keeps dating like emotionally unavailable guys, or everyone has that friend who dates like the crazy girl. There's always like these stereotypes of these situations you keep getting yourself into. You know, like you might be the person who always ends up broke and you spend all your money. These toxic cycles are a result of not understanding how to get yourself out of that situation. So as you access more of yourself, you access more information about what you really should be doing based on like the problems you're having. So you stop having to repeat toxic cycles because you finally learn something. So this is important. This is not logical. So a lot of people will say, well, didn't you learn your lesson from the last shitty job you had and now you're in another shitty job? This is not logical learning. We don't learn logically. Humans can learn some things logically, like how to fix a car. You can learn that logically. But a lot of people mistakenly believe that emotional learning it should be done logically too. Everything should be done logically. This is denying human nature, essentially. It's denying the nature that humans have to emotionally learn. So if you don't emotionally learn, then you will have to repeat a toxic pattern until you do. This is like the most painful aspect of being alive as a human, especially for, like really difficult situations, like people who keep getting into abusive relationships. Like, is that what they deserve? No, but they didn't learn. It's because they didn't learn the emotional information that they needed to learn. They didn't clear up that trauma. And so the pattern, they will naturally just like bounce right back into that same sort of situation. This is why we see people who, sometimes they move away to try to create a new life for themselves. Like, I moved out of the United States and now I'm in Europe, and so I'm just gonna have a new life here. But you haven't done any sort of inner work at all. There are situations in your new country that are identical, and you're gonna find them no matter how much you try to deny and avoid them. The trauma is still a part of you, and so that's the difficult thing here. If you haven't emotionally learned and resolved that trauma, you're gonna keep ending up in those situations. So reason number 5 for doing shadow work. The reasons for patterns are illuminated, right? So this is what we just talked about with the repeating toxic cycles. Knowing why something is happening is, it's like knowledge is power, people say. It's more like knowledge becomes power. Like, the minute you know something, it's not that you're like totally empowered and your whole life changes, But the minute you know something, it's the beginning of the new life with that new piece of information. So not doing shadow work is like having some puzzle pieces and then some pieces missing, and you're trying to create a whole and like a really positive, like empowered life, having some puzzle pieces. Shadow work is all the information coming together as you can handle it. As you advance and grow and learn, like you can't do this all in a week, obviously. It's just too much for anybody to do all this at once. So you just continuously get more and more puzzle pieces, more knowledge and understanding about where your patterns came from. And then you can have more compassion for yourself, knowing that you're not stupid. It's not that you're just like not working hard enough or that's why your life isn't going how you want. It's having that compassion to know that this is where this came from. This is exactly where this pattern came from. It was basically like given to me by just my environment. And then you can have compassion and start to let that go. 6, you're no longer confused about who you are. This basically goes back to the power of decision making. The power of being able to make true decisions based on who you are as opposed to what you should be doing, right? So it's not your conditioning that's making all the decisions and driving your life. It's not your trauma that's making all the decisions and driving you into toxic cycle after toxic cycle. It's knowing who you literally are and what you literally prefer. What type of person are you? Not what type of person do you wish you were, not what you want to be doing, not like what your idols are doing. It's what you literally embody. And so doing shadow work is how you start to accept that, because we all have these like judgments about what should be done. So you can be against who you literally are before you start doing shadow work. And as you start to do more of it, you start to realize that who you are from the beginning was fine, and you can make decisions from that place. 7, understanding other people and or the collective shadow. People say that your shadow is kind of a mirror of the collective shadow, like we all have aspects of the same thing. So as you do your own shadow work, you'll start to be able to see other people's shadows. So you'll know when someone else is making a decision from pain, where instead of from who they really are and what they really want and all of that. You'll be able to have more compassion for people in general, knowing that, oh, well, they're obviously in pain and they obviously have this pattern going on, and like it just becomes easier for you to handle interactions with people. You're no longer a victim to culture. So we have all this stuff going on right now in the US at least, and kind of everywhere, with the government really extreme polarization and really extreme victim feelings of being a victim. It's valid for some people to feel like victims when they really have been victims of things, but generally we also don't want to stay there forever, and the last thing we want is to believe that someone else in a position of power is controlling our well-being. We have a lot of people who are victims to culture. So they're victims of political institutions, like social norms, religious indoctrination, like all these systems and institutions that are in place. And people are valid for feeling like a victim. It's not that they're like, they deserve to have that space to like voice the fact that they're feeling like a victim. But if you really fully buy into the fact that you're a victim and that's all that you are, so not this idea of like, okay, I was a victim of this, I'm going to process that, I'm going to be with myself and move through that so that I can access all of my power. So it's not, people aren't necessarily having compassion for themselves because they were victims in some way. What they're doing is claiming that all they are and their entire identity is victim. And when you do this, you're basically saying these systems in power and the institutions that are dominant right now in culture are in control of me, and I'm a victim of them. And if they don't change, then I have no power. I have nothing to exercise. Everything depends on them changing so that I can feel better. That's a really dangerous and painful place to be. You're gonna be let down. There's a big difference between conscious and unconscious activism. 8, less frantic energy. The world kind of like runs on frantic energy a little bit. Like we're always like running on adrenaline, we run on coffee, we run on these substances like sugar, hyper productive, go, and in the extreme case, frantic. Oftentimes they become frantic. So as you do shadow work, you start to realize that there's something else out there. Like there's something beyond frantic, anxious energy, and that other things can motivate you. And then lastly, you are more empowered to handle obstacles. As things pop up in your life that are challenging, things that you used to completely fall apart over and things that would just take you out of your center for days or weeks even or months, they start to become things that you just move through, sometimes in a matter of like a few minutes. So instead of being drawn into this deep, dark depression for months because of getting laid off for a job, for example, you just have this really quick recovery period where you can just move through things and you can make new decisions and just change and move and roll with the punches. That's being more internally motivated as opposed to feeling good or bad based on what's going on outside of you. So these are 9 reasons to do shadow work. I'm sure you can think of a lot more, and you'll start to see probably a lot more reasons as you go through and do it yourself. This is the kind of thing that you can only learn through experience. It's about basically giving it the benefit of the doubt and just embarking on the process. And instead of quitting if you don't see results within a couple days or even a couple weeks, it's about just that commitment to growth, commitment to learning, and seeing where it takes you. We're very much prone to like wanting to measure, like, is this working? And if not, I'm going to quit right away. This is not something you can measure that quickly, although you may feel better right away. You may start to feel relief because you're getting more honest with yourself. And for some people, not suppressing emotion anymore feels like relief. For other people, it feels bad, like terrifying. But again, that's just because of the definitions we have about negative emotion, right? It's not even the emotion itself that is causing the problem. It's the belief that it's so bad to have this negative emotion. That's the main thing that like stunts people and really holds them up. And ironically, it keeps them in that negative emotion because it's just a constant battle and constant resistance to it. So those are the reasons. If you think of any more, you can leave them in the comment section below. You can subscribe to learn more at existbetter.co. That is all. See you next time.